Miracle Olatunji is a keynote speaker, content writer, entrepreneur, and author of Purpose, How to Live and Lead with Impact. She's the creator of Her Wallet Media. Her Wallet Media is an educational platform that helps women build their network, and self-worth. She attended Northeastern University, where she pursued a master's degree in finance and just recently was awarded it. She's been honored as a young futurist and game changer and by the Root magazine, one of the 25 under 25 by BostInno Magazine, and one of the 20 under 40 young shapers of business and entrepreneurship by Britannica. Miracle has also been featured in Forbes Technically, the CEO Library, the Female Lead, and other publications. And I tell you all of that because you're going to be amazed at her wisdom, her poise, and her candidness. Miracle, I'm so excited to have you here today. You're a student, entrepreneur, financial coach, content creator, and author. What a wonderful lot that is. So let's get started with growing up in Delaware. Now, you grew up in Delaware in the United States. Tell us about your upbringing.
Absolutely. So first of all, thank you so much for having me. It's such an honor to be speaking with you. So I did grow up in Delaware, and I feel like growing up in Delaware, which is a very small community, helped me appreciate the importance of close relationships. And while I was in Delaware, I went to school there. And when I was 17 in high school is where I went to a program all about entrepreneurship. And that's what introduced me to the world of entrepreneurship. And I remember starting my first company when I was in high school at that time after going through that program. And so I feel like being a part of the community in Delaware, it enabled me to make a lot of really great connections and especially close-knit connections. And that's something that I really value.
What was that hometown community like? Describe it. I mean, do you remember the population or whether or not it was a really church invested community or not?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I know it was like growing up, the community was very entrepreneurial, and all the people that I met were either working on a nonprofit idea or a business idea. And that was really inspiring to see other people, especially people my age. So in school, we had the entrepreneurship club, and I was part of the leadership team. And part of my effort was recruiting more women to join the club because it was very male dominated. And so bringing more people, more diverse backgrounds into the club was something that I was very focused on. So that was a little bit about that.
And you attended Northeastern University. How did you decide on that school and what was that like?
Well, first of all, I knew I wanted to get out of Delaware and kind of experience a new environment. And I'd always wanted to go to a bigger city for college. And so I was looking at schools in New York and I was looking at schools in Boston. And I remember when I toured Northeastern, I was just like, this is where I want to be. So Northeastern has this program called the co-op program. And basically in between your academic semesters, you're doing an internship. So you get real world experience. And so when I knew I wanted to study business, I wanted to get hands-on experience and build my network, get to know more people in the industry. And so when I saw that Northeastern had this program, I was like, I definitely need to go there. And I was really happy and excited when I got my acceptance letter.
I'm so glad you got it. A dear friend of mine is president of Northeastern, Joseph Aoun. I met him when he was at University of Southern California, USC, right on. And he was such an incredible dean there of the college. Both of my kids had him as dean while he was there. And just such an innovative thinker and an engaging soul. So I'm really glad you got to study under his presidency. Now, you're from the United States, but your family is from Nigeria. Have you ever visited Nigeria?
So unfortunately, I haven't had the chance to go back and visit, but I was born there and I have a lot of family there. It's definitely something I want to go and somewhere I want to go and visit. This year in December, I'm planning on going there. So hopefully everything works out. Me and my sisters are in the process of like planning our trip. And while we're there, we're hoping to go to Ghana as well, since Ghana is so close by. So it'll be nice to go back and experience it.
It was wonderful for me to receive an invitation to visit Ghana. Unfortunately, COVID stopped that. COVID stopped a lot for so many people, and that's why I'm so excited about the work you're doing. One of the things, though, you referenced earlier is that you won an entrepreneurship I don't know if it was a competition, was it, or was it an acknowledgement? And it was through a diamond challenge from the University of Delaware when you were in high school, yes?
Yes, that program was something I did in high school. So the university has this entrepreneurship program called the Horn Program in Entrepreneurship, and they have another program called the Diamond Challenge, which is for high school students. And so as a high school student, I decided to apply. Me and my friends, we pitched an idea, and we were able to meet entrepreneurs, like young entrepreneurs from around the world, and hear what problems they're working on and the businesses that they're creating. And so for me, that was really inspiring to see other people my age who were just going after their dreams and making things happen.
And you received venture funding at some point as well, right? You funded your company OpportuniMe
Yes, that's
with, yeah, talk about that. Walk us through your career journey thus far.
Yes, absolutely. So when I was in high school, there was one summer where I was kind of just at home bored, and I was looking for things to do in the community, and I was also looking for different programs I could do to keep myself busy. And so I just Googled like summer programs for high school students, and I was able to find this program called E2 at MIT, and that was actually my first time getting to go to Boston before touring Northeastern. And so through that program, I got exposed to like the technology field and engineering. And for me, I forgot to mention earlier, but a lot of my family is in healthcare. And so that for me was what I was mainly exposed to. And so growing up, my aspirations were, oh, I want to be a doctor, because I kind of just thought that was like the main path to go on. And, you know, my parents are immigrants, and a lot of immigrant families focus on like healthcare or law. And so for me, I was like, I have to pick one of those two. And so I was very much on that path. And then I did the summer programs, and it helped me learn about other different career paths that are out there. And I realized that there are a lot of these great enrichment programs for students and like young people to participate in, but it's just the word isn't spread about them. A lot of people are not aware that these programs exist. And so I created OpportuniMe to sort of bridge that gap and help more young people like myself to find those opportunities.
Well, you know, Miracle, because of the demographics of people listening to you right now, you're talking with people who are your age. You're also talking with people who have children your age. You've spoken about finding your purpose, and you've even written a book about it called Purpose: How to Live and Lead with Impact. What, tell all of us, inspired you to write a book like that so early in your career? And what were some of the challenges to you in actually writing it with credibility?
Mhm. Yeah, so I wrote my book 2 years ago, and the main purpose, no pun intended, for why I decided to write the book was so that I can help other young people. And I feel like in our society, there's a lot of pressure to kind of like have everything figured out by a certain age. There's these like unspoken rules of when you're supposed to do certain things by, and that just creates a lot of pressure on young people. And so I felt like there were a lot of people feeling how I was feeling, where it's like, I'm about to go to college, I need to figure out what major I'm applying to, what career path I want to have, and I'm only in high school, right? So a lot of people I figured are in that same situation. And so I created this book to help people, one, feel less alone. And I also wrote this book to help people feel inspired and know that like they have a lot of qualities within them that can help them find the career or build the career of their dreams. And so that's why I decided to write my book, to help other young people, and also people from other walks of life too. So people who are older than me, people who are younger than me have reached out and have told me how my book has inspired them. And so that's something that keeps me going and motivates me.
I love that. And the feedback, I think, for someone who does have a natural author tendency, which I believe you do, I think that's really important to your continued growth as well. So when you think then, Miracle, about how things have changed, I mean, you were on Northeastern's campus, then I think you went home and you completed your studies. Did you complete your studies with virtual classes, or did you actually get to graduate on campus?
So it was kind of weird for me. When I started college, I was on campus, everything was normal. And then COVID happened, as you know, so we had the virtual classes. And then this past semester, we were back in person. So I was able to finish all my classes in person.
That's fantastic. I'm really glad you got that experience, because I'm just sure that being on campus added a lot, especially after COVID, that gave meaning to that experience to you differently. The point I wanted you to get to is around how you've also been able to shift or pivot the outcomes that you look to help people achieve who are coming to you for assistance. Talk about that a little bit. Many companies don't pivot or shift as well and as thoughtfully as you have?
Mhm. Yeah, so that's a really good point. I feel like COVID had a lot of silver linings. And so actually during for summer of 2020, I hired two interns onto my team. And so one intern was in Washington, the other was in California. And so it was the three of us working together to create resources and like content for people our age who are navigating virtual classes for the first time, and people who had lost their internship offers because of COVID and all of the different layoffs and everything that happened at the time. So we were creating resources for people to learn how to like learn new skills, and also how to network in this virtual environment, and also how to just navigate all of these new changes that were happening. So like you said, it was really important to pivot and try to figure out ways to, adapt to the new world that we're in.
And when you think about it, you're a recent graduate. You've experienced more change likely over these last 3 years, as have all of us, than many of the people who were guiding and helping you to frame how you looked at life did over a lifetime. That's huge. How do you ration that into your life? Is it a gift? Is it a curse? Especially as you're helping other people to navigate their choices in their lives.
So I feel like one of the things that came out of the pandemic was us having time to reflect and think about our own personal values and our personal goals. And so for me, I was thinking a lot about how I view change. And so before the pandemic, before all this happened, I was constantly afraid of change. I know when I was moving from Delaware to Boston, I was terrified, but also really excited to have this new environment, be in a big city. And so I started to change the way that I view the concept of change, and realize that it can be a blessing in disguise. Just like we talked about how COVID brought about some really awful things, but it also helped us learn new ways of working and new ways of collaborating with each other. So I started to view change as something that can be positive and that can help us, achieve our goals faster and just have a better life overall. So I've started embracing change rather than being afraid of it.
I love how you stated it. I changed my perspective of change. And I like that. And I think that's going to be helpful to a lot of people, because no matter what type of support you have, no matter what type of natural intelligence you have, attitude is key to everything that you'll ever do or achieve. And it begins in the perspective stage, doesn't it?
Absolutely. I feel like your mindset can really impact the life that you have and your happiness levels. So that's something that I am trying to be more conscious of, is like, what kind of mindset do I have? Do I have an abundance mindset? Do I have a scarcity mindset? Those type of things. So that's actually one of my goals for this year, is to just have a more positive mindset that's more open to change. I'm actually having a big change coming up this year, or this month, where I'm moving across the country. So that's something that I've been preparing for mentally, as well as packing and, getting ready for that move.
Well, positioned in Delaware, you could be going a lot of places, moving across country. Where are you headed, and why? Tell us.
Yes, so I'm moving to Seattle, and I'm starting my first job after college.
Oh, fantastic. Okay. So listen, Miracle, has there been one person who's impacted your life and your thinking the most? Now, I get asked questions like this all of the time. And, naturally for me at this point in my life, that's like asking me, which color of the rainbow do I enjoy most? But I'm going to give you a shot at answering that.
Okay. Wow. So yeah, that is a really tough question, because I feel like there are a lot of people in my life who have positively impacted me. But if I could think of one person in particular who has impacted me the most, I would say my mom. She's a really resilient person. And so, she came to the US not really knowing many people. And she's one of the most confident people that I know. She's really good at adapting to change. She's very resourceful. And growing up, I feel like a lot of women relate to this, the struggles with self-esteem and self-worth. She's always been the person who's been my cheerleader, who's always affirmed me and inspired me, and, just continued to see just things in me that I didn't see in myself. And so I feel like it's really important for everyone to have someone in their life like that, who can help them see their strengths and help, lift them up on those tough days.
Well, this, let me say, is amazing. So you're also doing coaching. By the way, my mom and my dad are sheroes and heroes of my life. So I just really offend with you on that. And I'm so grateful that you've had that experience. Many of my guests have not had those positive experiences. And I'm so grateful that you do. And it shows through everything you're doing. How do you translate that into your coaching? And how did you get into coaching?
Yeah, so it started off in college, actually. So I was part of an organization called Women in Finance. And so every semester I would take on different mentees who were underclassmen. And so I would just talk to them about different aspects of the college experience. So I would coach them through like academics, and we'd also talk about just like navigate. A lot of them were like me, coming from smaller towns and smaller cities. And so for them coming to a big city like Boston, it was a big transition. So we would talk a lot about that. And also the professional aspect. So at Northeastern, pretty early on, you start interviewing for your first co-op and your first internship, and you're kind of thrown into the professional world super early. And so we would talk a lot about the personal aspects and also like the professional aspects of their goals. And so I really like coaching and helping people achieve their goals, like goal setting and helping people reach their goals is something that's really fulfilling to me. And so that's part of the reason why I really like coaching.
Well, my girlfriend, Francine Lafrac, is going to enjoy this conversation so much because one of her passions is to assist women to understand the power of finance and to get a handle and more financial literacy in their lives. And you're actually doing that on a daily basis and as a business. So kudos to you. What is the advice you're going to offer, or what is the advice you do offer to anybody who's seeking financial coaching? Where should they start? Naturally with you, if that's an option, but framing how they do that. How should they start thinking about that, and what should they look for as they research who is a financial coach for them?
Absolutely. So I feel like personal finances, it's very personal, right? And so a lot of it is not just like the money aspect, but also your mindset that you have going into it. And so when I say, when it comes to looking out for a coach, I would say find someone that you relate to, and someone who is very like non-judgmental. I feel like there's a lot of shame that's brought up about money, depending on how you grew up, maybe your family didn't talk about money too much, or it was like a taboo topic. It's really important to find someone who's like gentle and willing to like talk through any like mindsets that you have that might be limiting or anything like that, and taking into consideration like your personal experiences in life and how that's shaped your view on money. So that's kind of how I would advise someone who's looking for financial coaching.
Lean in a little bit more on shame that's associated with talking about money or even experiencing money, if you have a perspective on that.
Yeah, for sure. I think especially as women, money isn't something that's often like talked about as publicly. We're not often included in the conversations around finances. And then like maybe growing up, if your family was constantly like, arguing about money, or there was a feeling like there was like never enough. So you kind of have these like negative associations around talking about the concept of money, because there is just so much like baggage and like negative like associations with it. So that could be what causes some of the shame. And then also people having debts, maybe being told like they're not good with money. That's a common mindset that a lot of people have, is just like they are not good with money, but that's not true. Actually, like everyone can learn how to better their finances and like have a better financial life.
So, do you think that social media plays a role in that? And how can it do positive instead of negative
Hmm.
uh, impact?
Yeah, that's a really good point that you bring up. I feel like social media is huge in our society right now. And like, especially in like Gen Z, for example, there's a lot of comparison that can happen with social media. People will show one lifestyle that they have, and in reality, that's not how it actually is. And people can have compare themselves to other people and not really know the full story of their lives. But on the positive side of social media, I feel like with platforms like TikTok and Instagram, I feel like content around personal finance has become more accessible to people. Like you can go on TikTok now and find so much free content around personal finance. On Instagram, people are posting content about personal finance and investing and all these topics, and it's readily available to anyone with a smartphone.
Is your business or your coaching, any of that, is it digitized?
Yes, it is. So I post a lot on social media about personal finance topics.
Well, you're the creator of Her Wallet Media, and that's an educational platform that helps women build net worth, network, and self-worth. Talk a little bit about this platform, and where did the idea of creating it actually get breeded for you?
Okay, so I'm going to take you all the way back to when I was 17 again in high school. So I feel like 17 was a really pivotal year in my life where a lot of things changed. So first of all, getting exposure to entrepreneurship. And then also when I was 17, my mom and I went to a workshop called Women Empowered to Financially Thrive. And so during that workshop, I learned a lot about the wage gap. I learned about, this concept that we were just talking about around shame around money and how it affects a lot of women, and just like the different mindsets that we have about money and how they can hold us back. And so from that event, I just became really, really inspired to learn more about personal finances and also to help other women to learn more about investing in particular and how they can grow their wealth and how they can build generational wealth for like future generations and people coming behind them. And so I was really inspired by that. So when I got to Northeastern, we have an organization called Thrive. And so with Thrive, we coach people on personal finance topics, and we also host events as well. And so while I was hosting these events, I was realizing that there are certain issues that are unique to women, like the wage gap, for example. And so I feel like there's an importance for a platform like Her Wallet Media to help women in particular to feel like they have a safe space to talk about money. And so 3 pillars: build your net worth, your network, and your self-worth, are focused on obviously like the money aspect, but also the mindset and like the self-care aspect of finances.
That I just love your story. I mean, you're a movie miracle. You are a movie. Do you have any tips for our family on how to connect their business or their brands with others?
So definitely social media, Instagram and TikTok. There are a lot of other like finance creators on there to connect with and free resources for people to learn more about these topics. And just don't be afraid to ask questions. I personally think there's no such thing as a silly question. I feel like I'm also constantly learning about personal finances too. There's constantly things that are changing. And so if you want to stay up to date on things that are happening, reading newsletters and talking to different people and asking questions can help you, feel more connected.
What do you think are some of the challenges that entrepreneurs face when they're launching their businesses that can be alleviated by what you're teaching and coaching and offering so many people?
Mhm. I think first of all, it's the mindset and the limiting beliefs that we have. So, for example, when I was starting my first business, I remember thinking, kind of like we talked about earlier, who is going to give a 17-year-old money, who's never started a business before, but you have to still put yourself out there and pitch yourself. Like if I hadn't applied to that pitch competition, I wouldn't have been able to win funding for my business. If I stayed in the mindset of like, oh, I'm only 17, like who's going to pay attention to a 17-year-old, I wouldn't have been able to like make the progress that I did. So I think to your question, a lot of the times the thing that's standing in our way is ourselves and our mindset and our beliefs that we have. So that's what I would say to someone who's, considering starting a business and maybe having those like mindset blocks.
Yeah, and along the lines of our conversation about attitude, yes.
Absolutely.
What's your day-to-day like? I mean, you are doing a lot and you're about to change, if not courses, you're going to be changing your location, your whole home base. What's your day-to-day like?
So I feel like my day-to-day has changed significantly since graduating college. My days are definitely a lot slower being in Delaware versus when I was also juggling academics. So now I feel like I have more time to work on Her Wallet Media, for example, and also prepare for my move. And I've also been spending more time like taking care of my physical health and going to the gym and having more time to meal prep and things like that. So I do appreciate this period in my life where things are a little bit slower because I'm not in school and like juggling a bunch of that aspect of my life. So I'm grateful for the ways that I'm able to invest in myself during this time before I move. So I'm really grateful for that.
I'm grateful for you being here. What dreams do you have for your future that you can share with us?
In terms of my dreams for the future, I want to make a difference. And first of all, I want to build a career in the technology industry while also building my business, Her Wallet Media. And so I'm really passionate about that. And that's something that I'm working on right now. And then looking towards like the next 5-10 years or so, one of the things I want to do is start a scholarship fund. And so for me personally, I share this with a lot of people. I wouldn't have been able to attend Northeastern if not for scholarships. And so in the future, I want to be able to create a scholarship program to help other students because, I want more people to have access to education and especially education at schools like Northeastern. Like when I was applying, it was a dream of mine to be able to go to a school like that. Being from Delaware and going to a big city, that was a dream come true. So I want to make it possible so that more people can have access to that opportunity, those types of opportunities.
You're a role model for so many. Let's talk about what that means to you and what it's been like for you. Not just you being a role model for others, but where you sought your role models.
Absolutely. So I look up to a lot of women who are in business, and especially women who are in the technology industry and any industry that's particularly male dominated. And so to your point about the importance of role models, I feel that was established for me early on. So I have three younger sisters, and my mom would always constantly tell me, you have to be a positive role model for them. And so while I was their role model, I also had role models that I was looking up to, especially as I started pursuing my career path and just seeing women like yourself, for example, and other women in the industry who are making waves. That's something that really inspired me.
Oh, that's wonderful. And I have to tell you, you've heard that people speak about we have grown and we stand on the shoulders of so many before us. I can just see the many people who are already beginning to elevate from your shoulders. You're amazing gets overused in this instance. I think it's simply appropriate. Miracle,
Yeah.
you're amazing.
Thank you so much.
Let's go 4 for 4, okay? You ready?
Yes.
Okay, so I'm going to ask you 4 questions to which you'll give me 4 answers. There are no wrong answers. There are only fun ways to learn more from you. And
Okay.
the first question is, you get to invite anyone you want to dinner from any point in history to present. Who's going to be at your table?
So if I were to have dinner with anyone, I would want to have dinner with Oprah. I think she's absolutely incredible, as we all know. And so it'd be really amazing to get to sit down with her and just talk with her one-on-one about, her life and her experiences and any insights that she has. So that would be a really great opportunity. In addition to Oprah, I would want to have Michelle Obama there. I would love to learn more about her experiences too, and just have the opportunity to sit down with her. There's also someone that I admire. Her name's Tiffany Pham. She's the CEO of an organization called Mogul. And so she's basically changed the narrative around the word mogul and helped more women see themselves in that role. And she's an inspiration to a lot of people, myself included. And then lastly, I would want to have Shonda Rhimes at the table as well. She's an incredible writer and storyteller. So it'd be really amazing to get to chat with her and also maybe see what else she's working on in the future. She always makes the most incredible shows. So it would be awesome to get to talk with her.
Oh my goodness, you're going to have a wonderful table. I can't imagine what you'll be eating, but you'll be feasting on a lot of wisdom and success. And you know what? Just to round your table out, I'm going to show up and we'll make it a table of 6.
Yes,
Huh?
that would be amazing.
That's awesome. Well, let's go 2 for 4. Okay. So tell us, what music are you listening to? Which artists are you listening to right now and why?
So one of my favorite artists right now is Kehlani. So she writes a lot of R&B music. I love her music. It's very inspirational. She talks a lot about her life journey and relationships, love, just navigating life in general. She's also a big advocate for mental health, and she talks openly about that. So, and she writes about that a lot in her songs too. So she's one of my favorite artists at the moment. I also love Lizzo. Her music is so empowering. I got to go to her concert in September with my best friend, and it was an amazing experience. So I listen to a lot of Lizzo, Kehlani. I listen to all different types of music, Afro beats, reggaeton, just a lot of different types of music.
Fantastic. Well, you've given us 2 that I'm sure folks are going to go back and listen to more as well, huh? Because you've given some pretty powerful artists. How about books? 4 books that you recommend to our family and why?
So the first book I would like to recommend is called How to Build Your Dream Network. This is honestly one of the best books that I've read about networking and just like how to approach networking, especially in the digital age. Another book that I recommend is by Carla Harris, and she writes a lot of books around navigating your career. So one of my favorites by her is Expect to Win. And so in that book, she talks a lot about just navigating your career. It doesn't matter whatever stage you're in your life, whether you're early in your career, middle career, or later stage in your career. She talks a lot about different pearls. She calls them Carla's Pearls. And I really like that book. I'm also reading another book by Gloria Steinem called The Revolution from Within. So that's a book about self-esteem, confidence, finding your voice in the world. And then lastly, I recommend How to Win Friends and Influence People. I think that's a classic book, and it's very good on just like building relationships and connecting with people. So those are some of my favorite books at the moment.
They're incredible to be added to our list of recommendations. So thank you for those. So listen, we're rounding it out with 4 for 4. Miracle, share with us the 4 pieces of advice you think would be really valuable to have and to follow today. And if someone else gave you that advice, please give homage to them and share who it was.
The first piece of advice that I'll share is from my mom. This is something that she said a lot growing up, which is that the day you plant the seed isn't the same day that you eat the fruit. And I believe that's also been said by several other people. And my mom has her own way of saying it as well. And one thing that I took from that is when you have a goal, sometimes you don't see the results right away, but it's important to keep going and keep persisting towards that goal. And it can be very easy to get discouraged. So that's why it's important to have, just like we talked about earlier, people in your life who can uphold you and uplift you and just give you that support where you need it. That's the first piece of advice. Secondly, one thing that if you were to ask me to go back and talk to my younger self, because I'm sure there are a lot of people listening today who maybe they're still trying to figure out where they are in life or where they want to go in life in the future. And I would say don't put so much pressure on yourself to have it all figured out, because one of the amazing things about life is as you gain new experiences, as you travel, as you meet people, you'll find out passions that you didn't even know you had. So I talked about earlier how I discovered entrepreneurship. I didn't even know that was a possibility several years before when I did the program. So I think it's very important to put yourself out there and explore different paths that are out there and different opportunities. Another piece of advice that I'll give is to embrace what makes you uniquely you. And a lot of times we don't want to stand out. We want to blend in. It's very easy to try to follow the crowd, but I think it's really beautiful when you embrace the things that make you different, the things that make you unique. That's a really beautiful thing. That's something that I learned from a TED Talk that I watched by America Ferrera. She's an actress, and she talked a lot about how in Hollywood, she didn't see a lot of representation of women of color like herself. And so it was really important for her to own her differences. She says that her differences are her superpower. She doesn't see her difference as a weakness, but it's actually what gives her strength. And so that's something that I want to pass on to you. And then lastly, I want to talk about social media, because I know we talked about that a little bit earlier in the conversation. And one thing that I want to remind people of all different backgrounds, we constantly are on our phones and we're engaged and we're tapped into social media. It's really important to take breaks for our mental health and our well-being, and also to understand that a lot of times social media is a highlight reel and it doesn't really tell you the full picture of real life and everything that's going on. And so it's really important to check in on yourself, have that support system, and also be true to yourself as you're posting online.
Incredible advice. Thank you so much, Miracle Olatunji. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.